Hey everyone, I just wanted to say welcome to 2018 and new happy new year. I'm going to actually start doing some electronic soldering projects here. So what I'm going to do here in this first one is actually bring in some of the hardware that I'm going to be using to do the soldering with. So I'm going to be introducing each component that I'm going to be using in the projects here, and this is a matter of preference of which, like soldering iron and all that you should have, and the preference that you should want for yourself. I'm going to give some examples of what I have here, based on what I got and received, and it depends on the person. And now I'm just to let you know, I'm just a newbie at this, especially for electronic soldering. So this will vary from person to person, but at least it gives you an idea of what you'll need for this particular project I'm going to be working on. So let's actually go and take a look at the equipment that I'm going to be using, and I'll give you a brief description of what they are, and let you know what you can do with these. Okay? So let's actually go take a look right now. So let's start off with the soldering irons. This one here particularly is a workstation soldering iron. This is one of two types of workstation soldering irons that you can actually pick up at your local electronic specialty store. This one here has a manual on-off with two different two different wattages. A low-powered one for circuitries, and a higher one for, of course, higher soldering. This one here has only two types of heat or wattages. One is 20 watts, which is the low end, and then you have the 40 watt, which is the higher end on this, with a what they call is a sponge here to clean off. This here is actually dry right now, but they usually recommend to add water. The second type of workstation soldering iron is where you can power it on. Like this one here is like a power on for low or high. The other one you have a power on, but with a thermostat control on the unit itself here. That's the second type that includes with this wand right here, which comes directly into here, which you can actually put in to let it, heat up and whatnot. That's the first type of the three type of soldering irons that are available. This is the workstation one. The other one that I do have, which I'm going to pop in and out very shortly right after this, is one that looks like a pistol. So let me just get that one. Here's the pistol one that I'm talking about as the second one out of the three. This one here happens to be a 100 to a 140 watt pistol grip. It comes with some spare tips there, just to show you here. This is the actual pistol. It's the actual soldering gun itself for the trigger. So the first one actually will light up in low setting. Hit it on the second one and it brings it up to high, which is the maximum one it can go with at 140 watts. This here happens to be a good one for very small projects where you don't need a lot of heat at a constant rate. This will do a job for the electronics itself. It's, if you're doing something very small where you don't need it constantly on. This one here has a 1 minute heat time and 4 minutes of off time in order for it to keep itself cool. The other one that I have, the first one that I had actually shown you, keeps a constant rate of heat at the tip itself. So the third one is just the soldering iron itself, which basically plugs in. That would be the third type, and it doesn't come with any holder for it. So that would be the third type for the soldering irons themselves. But these are the two that I have available to me here as for the two soldering irons, which I'm going to be using more likely this one here for soldering my projects here. There's one thing I want to add in, which will be used with this particular soldering iron itself, and I'll bring that up very shortly. Okay, the other thing that you probably would be needing as well is the following for your equipment. Here are some replaceable tips, like this one here for my workstation soldering iron. This here is actually used for helping you take away the solder from the joints itself when you're working on a particular project. This is something that's a little handy. This is actually a manual desoldering pump. This here you can actually buy, which is relatively cheap at your local electronics store. It costs maybe about $4 or $5. This is an all metal one. They do have some in plastic, and they do have one where it's actually a soldering iron with a little pump as well, where you can actually desolder the particular piece that you soldered in just before. This here is actually for cleaning the tip of your soldering iron. This here is another $10 to $15, which I do suggest to getting, because that's always helpful in cleaning the tips that you have on your soldering iron. So these three are definitely the ones that you would need to have. And I'm going to show you, last but not least, one important feature that you would definitely need while you're doing your projects. And let me show you that as well. Last but not least, this is the actual digital multimeter that I have personally bought at my local hardware store. This is what I'm going to be using to check the actual parts to make sure that they're soldered in. You don't have to get a super expensive one. This one was actually on special with a little water cutter. This here is, I'm going to be using this one here particularly for these projects that I'm going to be working on electronically. This is what I'm going to be using for diagnosing. It's, like I said, it's fairly cheap. It comes with AC and DC voltages, and also a section for electronics themselves. So you can actually check the ohms and the resistor. So you can actually take a look to make sure that they're both working the way they are intended to. This here, like I said, it's cheap. You don't need a super expensive one, so long as it does the job and it works fairly well. As you begin to get more and more experience in reading multimeters with the projects themselves, it comes super handy, so you'll know exactly what to do when you're working with them. So this definitely will come in handy for the projects themselves. So this is last but not least, and let me show you the projects I'm going to be working on in the next few episodes here, so that way you have an idea what I'm going to be dealing. And this is the thing I'm going to be using the most. This here is actually another set of hands there where you can actually put in your circuit board here. This is a testing alligator clips here. So you can put your PCB here and use the magnifying glass on this side to read what's on the printed circuit board, both front and back. But when we're doing the soldering, we're probably going to use the back side of it, so you actually will see through here in regards to it. So this is actually another thing that comes in handy. It's maybe $8 or $10 for something like this. There are some other ones which are slightly more expensive. This one here you can actually bolt to your workstation itself, because it has this little U-shaped thing here, so you can actually bolt it down for heavier projects. But the ones that I have here, like I've shown earlier, will do the job for those ones because they're light enough. So this is basically it of the equipment that I have, plus the projects. So let's take a look in the next episode of the LED lighting for the project itself. That'll be the first project that we're going to be working on, okay? So let's get going. Let's get into the first project for the new year, and let's see what happens. And here are the 4 projects I'm going to actually be working on one at a time. This one here that I'm tapping here is actually called the flashing LED lights. That's a very basic one and something to learn off of, because it has some potentiometers. The other one here is the Wheel of Fortune, which is just some random lights with an IC chip in it, which does the randomization of which lights are going to be lit up. This one right here, which is sound to light unit, it basically reads the reads the sound coming out or coming into it, and it'll light up one of the 4 LED lights. And last but not least, this one right here is a 3 by 3 by 3 LED cube. This one here is a little bit more complex. I'm leaving this one here as for the last one of the projects that I'm going to be working at, but I'm going to get some more of these projects to work with to get more experience. But this one here I want to leave last, because this one here is the more complex one, because it actually has a microcontroller that you can hook up to your computer itself, like a Windows-based PC, a Mac-based PC, where you can actually load in the software or the program itself, and it'll actually light up the LEDs, and they'll have certain patterns in regards to flashing LED lights in the 3-dimensional cube. So this is going to be interesting as the last project out of the 4 to work with. So what I'm going to do as well is, eventually when I get these 4 here done, I'm going to get other ones to get more complicated, or work with my Arduino that I have at home here, and we'll definitely do that as a testing bed, and then actually get the parts to actually solder it and have a final product like this. So this is what I'm going to work on for the time being. The next episode that I'm going to do is we're going to actually start with this one here, the flashing LED lights, which is going to be the first one in the series that I'm going to be using. And one other thing I almost forgot, and silly goose, I should have put that in here, and I'm going to put that in there now. So let me come back here.